Welcome to the undergraduate panel on research in the time of COVID-19. 8 fellow University of Rochester undergraduate students from a variety of disciplines share their experiences about starting and doing research before and during the pandemic. I'm Sue Cardinal, a STEM librarian working at Carlson Library, part of the River Campus Libraries. I'll be the moderator of this panel. Thanks, Edith.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I will start. My research experience was largely a continuation of a REU I had at UConn over the past summer, and we still work on it today, so I guess it's a little bit relevant, I suppose. So for those of you who are looking for math research, I think that an REU is your best bet. You can apply to them on the NSF website and get funding, like a small stipend to fund your research. And before COVID, you could have gotten some travel and like room and board money as well. But to my knowledge, a lot of REUs are still running or planning to run this coming summer because a lot of math REUs had quite a bit of success last summer doing things remotely. So if it's not too late, I would encourage all of you to apply. I think that a lot of the deadlines will be in early March. So if you can get your application together in time, I would really encourage it. So a typical day for me, it would really depend based on who your professor is, but during the summer, we would have a short group meeting at the beginning of every day to go over any progress we made, and then you would meet with whoever's in your group during the day. And it was honestly very flexible because, you know, we can't really control how much time we are spending at the computer, and my partner actually had a job at the same time. So I think it's very doable to have multiple positions at the same time. As for regular work hours, now that the summer program is over, intended to work every week for a couple of hours, and that hasn't really happened, so now we do every 2 weeks. So our goal is to have some publication. For those of you who are not American citizens, it might be difficult to get into an SF program, but I would really encourage you to like cold email some of these professors, especially if you're willing to fund yourself, because they are always open to finding new students, and they are very happy to teach you everything that they know, and you don't really need to have a super strong background in whatever research topic they have. Okay, that is just, I think I've gone on for too long, so I will pass on the baton.
Thank you, Edith. So the next presenter will be Yu Wang. I hope I'm saying that right. Feel free to correct me. Who is Yu? All right, thank you. She's a senior majoring in physics and mathematics.
Yes, I'll share my screen. I have a few slides. So this is a part of my summer internship, which happened in the summer of 2020. My research project was on Gaussian process for anomaly detection. In particle accelerators, I conducted the research remotely at SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory, and they have accelerator. Anomaly is basically just abnormal points. So I basically detect abnormal points. On Gaussian processes machine learning algorithm, there's a little animation showing what is Gaussian process. This is going to be fast, not too technical. And we basically built the code. Those are the standard process to construct a mathematical model in Gaussian process. And this part illustrates the critical work in this project, which is derivative prediction. So the critical part in this project is not about implementing those methods already existed in Python library, but the critical part is about implementing something new. The prediction of derivative was discussed in a paper unrelated to physics. And we basically took that idea and developed our own algorithm and implemented the algorithm in a Python program. So here's the result. I applied the program on accelerator data, and I was able to detect anomaly. So about COVID time, so this is my poster session. This is me next to my poster. It's quite weird, like you won't expect this before COVID, right? This program is through internship, a program at LCLS, which is Linux Coherent Light Source at SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory. And Alice mentioned that NSF REU programs can be hard to find for international students. So international students such as me can try to find those internship programs because the internship programs, they're partially found through NSF, but the method of funding is not that NSF specifically giving the money to those students. I think it's more like the NSF fund the laboratories, and those labs use their funding to fund whoever they want. So they have the freedom to fund international students. And you can also look into company internship. You might be able to get some research opportunity using like through the company internships. My typical day, this is interesting. So I live on East Coast, and SLAC National Accelerator is in California. So during the remote working last summer, my typical workday starts about like 12 p.m. lunchtime. And in the morning, I was able to do something on my own. Sometimes I would do some work that my supervisor assigned. Sometimes I would go to River Campus and practice piano in the morning. And in the afternoon and evening, I would work on those projects my supervisor assigned. And sometimes I can go to like 11 p.m. It was challenging. My advisor and I had one-on-one meeting every week, and I would suggest you, if you are working remotely, you have to be proactive because on site it's very easy to just catch my advisor and ask questions, but remotely you can just get on and just not talk to your advisor for a month and not realizing that, so which is terrible. So you should be proactive and don't wait till the supervisor to catch you. You have to catch them. I think that's my advice. Yeah. Oh, and then I was lucky to attend the virtual seminars and colloquiums at SLAC. They have those designed for interns. So even remotely, try to find opportunities like that. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting. The poster session, working at SLAC remotely. So I appreciate your sharing that with us. So the next person we're going to hear from is Kayla, who is a senior majoring in psychology with minors in business and environmental humanities. So go ahead and speak, Kayla.
Okay, so moving away from STEM, all my research experience is in psychology, and it's been at U of R because I've had to like work to make money over the summer, so I couldn't participate in research. But I got involved in research freshman year. I took Psych 101 with Chris Nemec in the fall, and towards the end of the semester, I went to his office and was like, here's what I'm interested in. How do I get involved in research? And so he told me, like, reach out to people whose work you're interested in. And by the way, like, here's a project I'm working on. Do you want to help? And I was like, sure. So for the next 2 semesters, I was a research assistant for him, which pretty much just involved like sitting in the lab with participants and passing out surveys. but like getting that introduction to the research environment is helpful. And it also helped me build a relationship with the professor that I was able to then use to make a poster using data he had collected a couple years ago to go to the Self-Determination Theory conference in the Netherlands as a sophomore. So like, even if you get involved with research that's kind of like not super involved, that can still be useful. Of course, like try to find meaningful experiences, but it's okay if you can't. And now I'm working on honors research for the psychology department. We're looking at why employees do things like play Candy Crush or like go on Facebook instead of working. I should have said that within psychology, I'm interested in industrial and organizational psychology, which is like the intersection of business and psychology. So like motivation, employee engagement, stuff like that. And hopefully I will continue doing research in grad school next year, admission pending. As for an average day as a researcher, the work I do is like, I don't have like set hours every day. It's kind of like work on things when I want to, meet with my advisor when I feel like I should. So that's been pretty chill. I had the opposite experience of UA in that I'm from Seattle. So at the end of last semester, after we had gone home, I was trying to coordinate meetings with Chris, my advisor, that weren't at like 6 in the morning, because I was not up at 6 in the morning, even though that was a perfectly reasonable time for him, because that would be 9 over here. Yeah, that's about all I've got. My email is in the Google Doc. I'm also a peer advisor for the psychology department. So if you want to reach out about non-research related stuff, like what classes are good and whatnot, hit me up. Thanks.
Thank you. So yes, very interesting how time zones are coming into play with COVID, and the changes in disciplines, how there's a different feel. So next up, we will hear from Drusilla. So Drusilla, when you're ready. She's a junior majoring in statistics.
Hi, my name is Drusilla. I am a junior majoring in statistics. I recently just declared, but I initially was a public health EP major. Well, the research I was doing was in the social sciences in public health. And I got started with that after I was enrolled in Public Health 101 with Professor Elio, and I really enjoyed my experience, and I reached out to her, going over to Saunders and talking to her about the research she was engaged in. And, she just said, okay, I have something in mind. And she was working on HIV stigma research. And she said that would be a perfect role for me. And at the time, I didn't know I had an RIG, which is a research and innovation grant. So you usually just check on that because you get it once you enroll, and sometimes you just don't know if it's there or not. So I got that, and that's what I used in the summer. And then and that was the summer 2020. And after that, she's been paying me off with another grant that they got for the research. So a typical work day for me, especially during the summer, because I was on campus, because international students were allowed to stay. I would work on my own time, but we had weekly meetings, and there we would set up, different tasks, and then we'd meet on a Zoom call. I think it was Friday, and just go over what everyone's accomplished, what everyone's done, and that was really helpful. And just it was fun to talk to people after being locked up for so long. Yeah, and most of the research involved, at least the first bit over the summer, was a lot of data collection because we had about, there were like 300 subjects in total because it was a questionnaire that we handed over in Dakar, Senegal. And it was sex workers, it was men who have sex with men, which is a public health term for essentially, it's a behavioral term as opposed to preference. So yeah, and we did a lot of translating from French to English and data analysis after the fact. The qualitative research bit was really interesting because you take like interviews and you try to make sense of them and create scales and all of that. It was really cool. Yeah, and my advice is with research, especially when it's remote, just try to stay engaged, try to block out time in your schedule to do the work, especially if your professor's not on your case all the time. They're just really impressed if you show your own initiative and they're always involved. Yeah, and just organize your time really well. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to hear your story. And the next presenter is going to be Jasmine Moon. And she is a senior pursuing a major in psychology and a minor in brain and cognitive science.
Okay, thank you, Sue. So I'll just go ahead and briefly talk about my journey in research. And then also I just want to say in the beginning, if you guys have any other questions or want more details, my email again is in the Google Doc, so you can email me anytime. So my first step into research was in sophomore year. I applied on JobLink, and I was kind of surprised at first that I actually did get a reply on JobLink because I applied to a lot, but I only heard back from a couple of people. But one of them was the emergency medicine research intern position, and I started working there. And that was essentially just making phone calls to people who were recently discharged from the ER and then asking, and we wanted to kind of evaluate their perception of how their healthcare services, and then how they feel right now after being discharged. That initial step into research kind of introduced me to a bunch of trainings that have definitely helped me later in the future. And that includes the city, human subject protection trainings, trainings on my path, and then HIPAA trainings. And so then after that, I got a different position as a technical research assistant. And this was through cold emailing. So that also works, and I highly recommend doing that. And if you don't hear any responses, don't feel discouraged, just they get a lot of emails. And eventually you will find someone. But this was through cold emailing, and it was at URMC. It was in the Allergy, Immunology, and Rheumatology Center. And I was here, I think, sophomore year till second semester junior year. And essentially, it was introducing me to a bunch of different studies that we were doing. And this was more data collection rather than working with or talking with people. And so I was working on eRecord and Datos, which is another platform to enter data from different surveys and different tests that other people have done, other people on my research team. And so then there is that. But then the two main ones that I wanted to talk about are two things I'm doing right now. So the first one is a clinical research assistant position in CHET, the Center for Health and Technology. That's in the Saunders Research Building. And essentially, this was kind of luck to me, I think, because it was in freshman year, I joined the club called MAPS, and they had a mentor-mentee like matchup thing with current med students. And so I was like, okay, yeah, sure, like nothing to lose. So I just signed up for that and then met with the current med student, and he actually introduced me to the PI that he was working with. So then I got in touch with that PI, and then that PI actually got to like set up something with a postdoc that he was working with. Anyways, so in the beginning, we essentially looked at the influence of DBS, which is deep brain stimulation, for Parkinson's disease patients. And we were just looking at whether DBS is good, whether it actually works, or whether it doesn't work or like doesn't even do anything, because DBS is fairly novel. And so then after that, we also looked at comparing like the current drug developments for Parkinson's disease patients, and then seeing whether that actually fits into like what Parkinson's disease patients need. And then after that, my PI was kind of like, okay, we've been on this for like 3 semesters now. So she's like, if you want, you could just do your own project that you want. So then what I'm really interested in is mental illnesses, specifically depression and anxiety. And so then I wanted to kind of combine this research with Parkinson's disease patients with depression. So then what I'm looking at right now is studying the influence of depression and anxiety on the non-motor symptoms of Parkinson's disease patients, like sleep symptoms and their mood symptoms, and then non-movement symptoms. And I think this whole experience with Chet, which again started with being in a club and joining that mentor-mentee matchup event, definitely helped me. And through this, I was able to give poster presentations in the undergraduate research exposition, and then also have publications. And then the newest thing that I'm doing right now is in neonatology / breastfeeding medicine. I'm a clinical research assistant for it, and this is a new thing for me because it wasn't data entry, and it wasn't just like making phone calls to like patients that I didn't see in person, but this was actually starting from the beginning. So we were like working on a study all together, and we started with only like a research team of 3 people. And so then we had to build all the study documents. We had to get the IRB approvals and make all the forms and consent forms, and then just go through the whole protocol for the studies. We had to build all that. And then after that, we had to enroll patients. So then what I usually do on a daily basis, I work on this 20 hours a week, and I go in Monday to Friday. And so essentially what I do is in the morning, I would go through the screening log and then go through eRecord and see if there are any patients that qualify for our study. And then if they do, then I'll put them into a separate document telling myself that, okay, we're gonna look at these patients today. And then I would go down to the NICU and then go around to the patients who qualify for our study, and then tell them our study. And then if they're interested, give them a consent form and then enroll them. And then the actual testing is the exciting but also very nerve-wracking part because this is also a National Science Foundation funded study. So I always get nervous because I'm like, okay, mistakes can't be made. But during the testing, of course, you have to make sure that like everything's in order, everything is clean, everything goes exactly according to the protocol. And so then we would work on that, and that testing, each one would be about 2 to 3 hours. And so then usually per week, we would have like 2 to 4 moms that we would test. And then after that, we would have to do all the data analysis and the data uploading and wrap up and everything. So then each week for that position, it would be enrollment, testing, and then wrap up. But yeah. So that's my research journey.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. I'm amazed at all the different ways that you got into research, and I think it just shows that there's no one path that will lead you there. So the next person that we're going to hear from is ours, and I hope I'm saying that right. So ours is a Take 5 senior majoring in biology and psychology. So take it away, ours.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name is Arth, and I want to continue the thread that Sue was just on, saying that like, you don't have to take one way into research. And what I want to tell is like, you don't have to be on the same thread when you leave doing undergraduate research. It takes you to a variety of places. For me, it's crazy because I entered just like doing research, thinking I was like, oh, I want to do a PhD, you know, Dr. Gamagami is here. So I'll start with, you know, I was working in Dr. Chen's lab, researching population genetics, and I loved it. But like for me now, I'm planning on going to law school. And that's like, that just does, you know, you are so involved in like biology research. How does that happen? So it's just like, I contacted Dr. Chen. She was one of the newer faculty, and I just really liked the way she was working with stacks to like, she works with this very small bird called the Florida scrub jay, and she like tries to understand what's causing it to be endangered and how can we make the environment a better place for it. And I was like, this is fascinating. I love statistics. I just taken stats 212, which is like an intro level stats course, but I thought that I knew all the stats in the world. So I was like, okay, let's go mean, median, mode. There we go. However, there was a big learning curve, which I didn't anticipate, but like I got over it. And like, as that happened, as I started researching more and more, I got involved in psychology research, which is my other major. And that was also fascinating because that's where I was looking at children's moral concerns. So my honors thesis for my psychology focuses on how gay, lesbian, and bisexual children come out to their peers and like what drives them into coming out. Taking the stats portion from Dr. Chen's lab and taking this human interaction from Dr. Ellen Bass's lab, which is the social cognitive development lab, I realized that like, I don't want to go into just one field, but rather go in some place where like I can make policy, like legislature, which is data driven, something I feel like lacks today as we like look around us. A lot of our policies are not based on sound data. And like these policies affect me and you. Take policies, for example, related to abortion or like reproductive rights. They are not grounded in things that actually matter in a lot of places. And that's what I want to change. I want to like use data that affect real people in this real world. And to do that, I need all the research experience I can get now. And I want to apply it in a totally different place, which is law school. So that is my spiel, you know? So like, if you feel like your research is taking you someplace which is like not destined, like I know you want to go to med school, you know, or you know you want to get a PhD, or like if you feel like you want to go off the beaten path, definitely look into that. It's going to pay off.
Wow, ours. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your passion and how things can change over time. Our next presenter is going to be Anna Remus. She's an undergraduate, initially undecided, but then ending up having a triple major, my goodness, in anthropology, Spanish, and interdisciplinary major, archaeology, technology, and historic structure. So look forward to hearing more. Go ahead, Anna.
Hi, can everyone see my slides? Okay, great. I'm just going to jump right in, and I'll second ours in saying that your research journey doesn't necessarily put you on a track to a specific end. Oh boy, now I can't. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I'm from the Chicago area, and then I came to Rochester, and that's where my first research project was. But then research also took me to Ghana, Peru, and now back to Rochester. So I'll kind of take you through that and take you through the various things, various types of research that I've worked on. They have a lot of long names: ethnographic research, archaeological research, structural research, archival research, literary research. So like, what do these all look like? What am I actually doing when I say I do these types of research? Well, a lot of different things. And it often seems kind of incoherent. I'm doing interviews, but then I'm like working with human remains and doing osteological research. And then I was literally digging in the dirt to do excavation. And then I was doing 3D CAD modeling on a computer. And then suddenly I'm back in Rochester and working on the Seward family digital archive and doing genealogical research. And so it's all over the place. And I've got some pictures here to kind of give you a look at at the diversity of what my research journey has been. On the lower left, this osteological research, I was working with human remains in Lima, and then on the upper right, I did some CAD drawing or AutoCAD drawings about restoration, how historic buildings have to, or rather the negotiation that has to happen when there are historic buildings but modern needs. And then at the same time, I've done just traditional research, presentation based. In the middle, you'll see me. This was my first research project, and it was about Lewis Henry Morgan, who's a Rochesterian, whose manuscript collection we have in the rare books department. And so all of this is like, whoa, Anna, maybe you should just pick something. As you can tell by me being a triple major, I have a hard time picking things. But it actually is a little bit more coherent. So I have a couple tips. I've kind of narrowed it down. I've done these different research things, and they kind of make sense. I see that there's something in the chat. Oops, okay.
They were asking what year you were, and ours answered.
Oh, I'm a senior. I can't see the chat with my screen share up. I'm a senior. So my first piece of advice is to seek what's unique. So this first research project I got into, this Morgan project, I only could have done that here at the U of R. Nowhere else has his manuscript collection. He didn't live anywhere else. He was a Rochesterian. And so finding something and saying, hey, I can't do that anywhere else, and just getting into it for the novelty and taking advantage of the situation I was in now was really great. And the same thing was true when I did this restoration research and the osteology research I show in the other two pictures. Those were things that I couldn't have done anywhere but Lima. I was really in the space, taking advantage of what my environment had to offer. My second piece of advice is echoing what others have said. Send the email. Email will be your best friend. Just if something interests you, reach out. You don't have anything to lose. My third piece of advice is put in what you want out. Got a lovely non-example picture. I wasn't actually sleeping, it was break. But it's a fun picture. If you really want to get a lot out of research, definitely be willing to put a lot in. The more opportunities you take, the more experience you get. It shows your advisors or your mentors that you're a hard worker, that you want to learn, and they'll kind of respond in kind. It's reciprocal. My fourth piece of advice is to get out of your comfort zone. I did not know if I would enjoy spending 8 hours digging in the dirt, as you can see in this picture. I loved it. My smile says it all. And so it really pays off to try new things. You learn new you learn new skills, and even if you don't like it, that kind of guides you on the path. And that's kind of the major thing with my very discombobulated research story is I've tried a lot of things, I've put a lot of effort in, and even if I don't end up doing structural engineering research like you see in the upper right, I know to kind of like turn and focus on something different. My last point kind of relates to this whole COVID thing, is to roll with the punches. Sometimes your research doesn't really happen as you expect it to. So in the top picture, this looks really archaeological. It's Ghana. You can see the dirt. You can see the nice shade that we've created for our lovely excavation. And it was not a lovely excavation because the excavation was completely sterile. That means there was nothing. We did not find a single artifact. And that's because there had been construction that we didn't know about. And so it was just plain dirt. And so we had to pivot. And the pivot had to happen before COVID. It just happens sometimes. And so with COVID, it's been an extended pivot. But if you roll with the punches, you can learn different things. So now I'm at kind of the end of my undergraduate research journey, and I've taken up my own project, and I'm doing a thesis at the City of Rochester Public Market, doing anthropological research, talking to people. And I thought it was going to be very based in interviews and participating, maybe even helping at someone's stall. But now with COVID, it'll be a little different. And what I'm doing is situating the observations I've already made at the public market with a broader discourse on other market spaces. So I guess my last bit here is that even these disparate projects kind of lead to a snowball. If you do one research project, maybe you learn a skill that's relevant to another project, even if the content doesn't match. And so even if your research experience isn't directly related to what you anticipate or directly related to what your future holds, you learn skills and they help direct you to maybe a more focused path. And that's how it was for me. And yeah, it'll in the end give you confidence to seek out opportunities that are the best for you, or even create those for yourself.
Thank you so much, Anna. Quite a journey that you've shared, and a lot of wonderful things that have happened and a lot of pivoting. So, all right, so last up, we have Ivana, if that's the right way to say your name, who is a junior majoring in BME and specializing in cell and tissue engineering. So take it away, Ivana.
Hi, I'm having some issues with my laptop, so I hope everyone can hear me and see me. And if at some point I freeze, yeah, let me know. I just wanted to start off by saying how nice it is to speak after Anna and Ars, because Anna was my first year RA and Ars was my second year RA. So I've had some really nice role models to look up to. And also, if I'm looking down, I wrote down some bullet points that I just wanted to share. Okay, so how did I start? Well, I started by thoroughly going through a list of faculty that I was interested in. And I started emailing them. I narrowed down what I wanted to do, what I was even remotely interested in. And as someone was previously saying, I started cold emailing everyone that I could. But also, while you're emailing, you should keep in mind that a lot of these people are very busy. And if they get a chance to read your email, they're probably going to read only that one email. So you want to make the best out of it. You need to let them know who you are, how you stumbled upon them, and why did you actually find them? And what exactly can you offer to them? Why is your presence in that lab, in that research study going to be beneficial? They might only find 5 minutes to read that email, so you have to make your best shot. And well, through some of that emailing, I had my first experience here as a sophomore, And that's where I stumble upon my second point, which is that sometimes as undergrads, we tend to think, any research experience is a good research experience. But what I experienced as a sophomore was that you need to learn that your time is valuable, like you should not be taken for granted. And I had an experience in which my PI was not completely transparent, and I kept asking how will my time be compensated, through credits or through money or something, and we just didn't have any common grounds. So that's one experience that also like teaches you something. And I kept thinking to myself, oh yeah, I'm still learning something, I'm still doing something, even if it's just like volunteering. But I think like we should value our time, and like you should know that like even if you're just an undergrad, you still have ideas, you still have some great things to give to that lab. Then after that, I was lucky to find a brilliant PI, Dr. Calvi, in the Wilmot Cancer Center, and I've been working with her for some time now. I'm doing research in the area of stem cells, more specifically the ones that form blood and bones. And what I'm trying to research is how aging and radiation affect them. So when it comes to that, there's a few things that I wanted to say about organization. So I'm studying BME, which by itself takes a lot of time. I wouldn't say necessarily it's really hard, but it's just very time consuming. So and I also, a lot of my, not a lot, but most of my research cannot be done remotely. I have to work with mice, I have to be actually there. Sometimes most of the time it's really time sensitive. So I have to be there the entire day, like wait for some time to do something. So what I've started to do is somehow, try to combine my schoolwork and my lab work. I come in the morning, I do some of the things, then I have a nice lab space so I can watch my lectures there, I can do my homework, do my readings. So to kind of minimize that time going back and forth to the hospital, because it's not so close, it's also cold. So that's one thing I've started doing. And I've started pretending that my research is a regular course that I have. I'm gonna input time slots in my schedule that I'm gonna dedicate to it, because otherwise, I don't know, everyone functions differently, but for me, I've seen that if you dedicate, specific time slots, you're more likely to stick to them and you're more likely to be productive. What else? Yeah, well, it's also, I think I was really lucky with my PI that she has immediately involved me in all aspects of the lab. So on Mondays, we have a lab meeting that is only for our lab. On Tuesdays, I have a lab meeting that is individual with her. And then on Thursday, early mornings, we have another joint lab meeting, which is with a few other labs that we work together with. And it might seem like it's a lot, but it's really useful because basically every week I get to see someone else present. I get to read a few papers. I get to sometimes present something on my own. And not every single time that you're in those lab meetings will you understand perfectly what's happening. But it's a lot of useful skills. It's a lot of professional networking. And in my lab, I'm the only undergrad. So at first it was a lot of pressure, but then you start to kind of leverage all those things that everyone is more experienced than you are. And it becomes, really wonderful. Besides from that, I also wanted to say that there's a lot of maybe local ways that you can get involved. I'm speaking purely for, like medical research and what I know, but sometimes maybe it's just like knowing a friend, a family friend, or someone who's doing something that you're interested in, having a local clinic or a local anything that you can visit and try to ask if you could do something for them, if like you could get involved. It's really good when it's through U of R, but it does not always have to be. There's many pathways. And yeah, I think there's one more thing that I wanted to say, which is as I'm an international student, sometimes, funding and a lot of these things can be an issue. So there's great resources. One of them that has been helping me through my undergrad career is Current Center, which is a center for first gen, low income, and minority students. And they can help with things like summer courses that you need to take. They can help with if you need to go to a conference but you don't have the sources, they can really pay for it and similar things. So yeah, that's just one resource that I wanted to share in case there's some international students. And yeah, there's also my email in the Google Doc if you want to ask anything. Thank you.
Thanks, Savannah. It was great to hear from you and how you take advantage of all that University of Rochester has to offer, and organize your time. Yeah, let's give a round of applause to all of the panelists. I know it's a little challenging to do, but okay. So now I'd like to open up the floor for questions. So you have two options. You can put questions in the chat. So if everyone wants to monitor the chat, that'd be great. And I'll try to call out questions. And then also feel free to unmute yourself. It's a little awkward, but I know you can do it. So have about 10 minutes for questions. And so I will pause here and let you start asking. So it's hard to decide how long to wait, but here's one from Victoria. So this is for Jasmine. What was the club name for the Mentee and Med student program?
Yeah, it was called MAPS. I don't remember what it stands for at this moment, but it's an acronym, MAPS.
Thank you. So along those lines, do you all belong to different clubs, or do you have like social activities that kind of led you into some of your research?
I'm in Psy-Chi, which is like the Psychology Honor Society. And I'm also a member of the Psychology Undergraduate Council, but both groups are kind of dead, so they haven't been helpful. But maybe one day someone will revive them and they will be a fantastic resource.
Thank you.
I also just want to shout out, if you're a BCS or neuroscience major, definitely consider joining the BCS and Neuroscience Undergraduate Council. We send out opportunities and like research and guest speaker events too. And even with those guest speaker events, you guys can like email the guest speakers and then ask them about like opportunities too.
Good tip.
I'm a member of Society of Physics Students and Society of Women in Astronomy and Physics. We are super active and there are professional development events. You are welcome to join even if you are not a physics major or astronomy major.
Thank you, Yui. Right, so changing the topic, we have another question. Do you attach a lab resume or previous research paper or presentation you did to your like application email or your email for soliciting?
I don't know if anyone else is going to answer, but I think as long as it's remotely relevant, you should. Definitely your resume, as I said, that professor might just like skim over that and have a few minutes to read it. So you should definitely attach your resume if you worked with anything or anyone who's in that field and you have a recommendation or a publication, research paper, or anything that like kind of backs up what you said you can offer, definitely attach it.
I also there you go.
I would jump in and say that you have nothing to lose. Even if you attach it and they don't read it, it doesn't matter. So definitely, I second Ivana. Add that.
I also want to say you kind of want to make it easiest for them because, as Ivana was saying, sometimes they might only have like a few minutes to read your email. So then include that resume, include maybe like your availability times if they want to potentially meet, like include as much information as you can, but don't like overwhelm it, but like include that information like your resume and like times and everything.
Sometimes I even attach my transcript.
Okay. So that sounds like it's a good idea to attach that resume if you have it. So what was the hardest part of joining a lab for the first time? And this is to any of you that are working in a lab setting.
See, it was hard for me to understand what the group was doing. I was basically thrown. Well, I started my research sophomore fall on campus at Rochester. I was thrown. Well, I had basic introductions and I read some papers, but for the most part, I was just thrown into the environment. It took me a long time to speak during my group meeting for the first time, but just believe in yourself and it's going to be fine.
I wanted to add on to that sometimes as I said, I'm the only undergrad in my lab. Everyone else is super qualified in my eyes. So sometimes it's when you're listening to a presentation and you're not getting anything, like it's completely fine to ask at the end, could you clarify this? How did you get this result? Could you repeat something? Because even these people that are like have 20 years of experience in the field, sometimes they ask a question that I'm like, seriously, did you not pay attention? So like, trust me, it's completely fine. That was the hardest part for me, to convince myself that, no one's gonna look down on me if I ask something as an undergrad.
Thank you, Ivana. That brings up a really good point. I think a lot of people, they think, how can I start research when I don't have any experience and I don't have a lot of qualifications? And I think that's kind of the point of the university, right? Is we're lifting people up and growing their knowledge in their, so there are other criteria sometimes that cause you to be selected. Perhaps you could speak to that. What do you think were some of the things that your PIs or your advisors looked at when they chose you?
Someone else wanted to say something.
No, I just have a question. Oh, yeah. So for math research, I was wondering, like, how do you get the on-campus research? Like the on-campus research, I mean, like research over the semester, but not like just during the summer. Because I reached out a bunch of professors in math department. They don't seem like very responsible or anything. Like they don't want to like respond or anything. So I'm just wondering, how do you get a research like that?
Well, they email more professors and talk to older students because older students know stories about professors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, honestly, peer advisors are excellent source of information about who is interested in having undergraduates in their lab and, how to approach them. And so you have the brain trust here. So I want to mention a few things that are happening in chat. Maureen says, nice job to all of your presenters. For anyone looking to present their research, check out the Undergraduate Research Office website to present your work with a poster, and there's a link there. And then you can also apply for a Discover grant to fund summer research. And don't be afraid to fangirl about PI's research a little bit. They want to work with people who are genuinely interested and enthusiastic. So thank you for all this advice and tips. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. So any last words?
Seriously, like feel free to reach out to, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but panelists, like we will take time to respond to you and not ghost you.
Yeah, and we didn't get a chance to answer the question about how you got chosen or what qualities made you stick out to someone. But I think that's really important is as an undergrad, you do have qualities that people want. Those qualities are enthusiasm, those qualities are curiosity, those qualities are wanting to put in effort and wanting to learn. And those are really valuable things. And I speak from experience. I've done a lot of various things where I didn't have experience going in, but I did have enthusiasm and I did have curiosity, and that takes you really far. So if you're interested in doing research, go for it.
And like, if you are taking a class with a professor that you might want to work with in the future, like be engaged, because they might remember like, oh yeah, I remember you took my class last year, you were always looking at your phone, and like that does not reflect well on you. So like raise your hand, ask questions, like build a relationship so that they know who you are in case you want to work with them in the future.
All right, so my last word would be that this was a program put together by PRO, and PRO is Pathways to Research Opportunities, which is a program in the library, River Campus Libraries. There's a link to the PRO website. I would encourage you, if you've not heard of this, check out our website, and also to subscribe to our email list. And we will have some upcoming events in the future, like putting together a resume and doing a deep dive into research, learning what PIs are writing, and so you can start reading some papers and learning more about the research. So thank you so much for everyone who presented today. Another round of applause if we could. And then please reach out to people if you have questions. Their emails are in the Google Doc. And thank you for the audience. It's not always easy to get on Zoom one more time. So thank you so much for coming and listening.